Welcome back to the WWE Marathon. We are on episode 5 of the Marathon, which means episode 4 of Raw. We are off to a hot start because immediately after the opening music ends, we go right into Tatanka's entrance music. Damien Demento is already in the ring. This is the second appearance of Damien Demento after main eventing the first episode, and it is a squash. Tatanka is still on his undefeated streak. We're going to see 2 undefeated wrestlers in this show, and it's really not much of a match at all. We do have the return of the Rob Bartlett, Randy Savage, Vince McMahon commentary team because Randy Savage is not wrestling tonight, so it is the regular 3. Rob Bartlett is a little bit more subdued this time, but we'll get into... I think I figured out why he is him, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But Tatanka ends up winning with the one-armed Samoan drop. Real quick match, nothing much to it. At one point, Rob Bartlett makes a Ruth Buzzy reference, which, if you don't know her, she's done a lot of voice work, but she's most famous for Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, which at the time of this filming was almost 20 years old. So, yeah, that's when the kids got. There's a Headlock on Hunger video. They had done a kickoff at a Madison Square Garden show where Bret Hart presented the Red Cross with a check for $100,000, big charitable thing that they were doing at the time. I don't know why they're not working with the Red Cross anymore, but that's what they were doing at the time. So even from the first 4 episodes of Raw, they were still doing these charity initiatives that you still see to this day. Then we go into a promo where Brutus the Barber Beefcake announced that he was returning to action. Now you may have heard about this. He had had a parasailing accident. This is actually about 2.5 years earlier, where I guess he accidentally signaled, or somebody thought that he had signaled that the person he was helping get set up was ready to go, so the boat took off, and the person who was parasailing, her knees or her feet, depending on who you ask, went right into his face, just basically almost killed him. And then in the promo he talks about how even before that happened, he had had a lot of personal tragedy. Both of his parents died, his wife left him, just bad things. But what they kind of leave out is that he was back very soon after this injury in this masked persona, and they never had a match with him, but obviously they thought he was coming back because in this persona that nobody really remembers anymore, he had attacked a few different people. They never even gave him a name because they never went to a match with him before realizing it's not going to work. I don't know if he was masked because he had some kind of protective gear under it or what, don't know. But then he went back to Brutus Beefcake for the host of the Barbershop. This was during the time period where the famous Rockers split up was. This was when he had retired, but he was still under contract. They still wanted to give him a break. They still wanted to help him out because he was loyal to Vince McMahon. He was loyal to WWE. He was loyal to Hulk Hogan is what it was. He was Hulk Hogan's buddy, and he even kind of references that in this promo. But he says he's coming back to action. It's been almost 3 years at this point. Okay, so we're in the promo. Sorry, I just had to do something. And he puts over Hulk Hogan in the promo as being the reason he came back. So this is obviously leading to something. Then we get High Energy versus Iron Mike Sharpe and Skull Von Krush, who's only introduced as Von Krush, but you look up the milestones, it says Skull Von Krush. Iron Mike Sharpe is one of the original jobbers for WWE. When Hulk Hogan would do his New Japan runs while still with WWE, he would take Iron Mike Sharpe to be his tag team partner, so that Iron Mike Sharpe would eat the losses. If you watch New Japan, they still do that. Anytime you see Juice Robinson in a match, like Okada and Juice Robinson, that's what it was. Hogan and Iron Mike Sharpe. They still do it. So it was them against High Energy, which Coco Beware and Owen Hart, and this match, so quick, so quick. Blink and you'll miss it. Now, Skull Von Krush is actually Vito LaGrasso, who would go on to be one of the Baldies in ECW, one of the Mamalukes in WCW, and one of the FBI. When he came back to WWE later on, that's when he wore the dress. It was a whole big thing. It's Big Vito. Here he is as Skull Von Krush. So there you go. Then you have Doink versus Typhoon. Typhoon at this point is so low on everybody's radar that he is jobbing to Doink putting over the new guy. Now this was one of Doink's first matches. When he originally came out, he was just doing stuff in the crowd. This is one of his first televised matches. And he wins it with a roll-up where he's grabbing the tights, and this is supposed to be some huge thing. But yeah, that's his deal. And then really nice bit of character work. After the match, he has this really sinister look to camera, which is crazy. It's just wonderful character work. Matt Bourne was a genius with the Doink gimmick. It was the worst, dumbest gimmick, and he did such a great job. It's up there with like Honky Tonk Man as far as bad gimmicks done well. Anyway, it was during this match where I realized what is going on with Rob Bartlett. Because he's used to the morning show situation, and there it's almost like an improv thing where if you set up a joke, everybody else in the room is going to catch on. They're going to try and build on it. They're all doing yes and. But here on the commentary table, they're not, because they're worried about the match. So he'll cut a joke, and then Vince McMahon will call the match. Randy Savage will call the match, and then Rob Bartlett goes back to the joke. And by that point, the joke's already moved on. When in a radio show, he would have had Don Imus jump on. He would have had somebody else in the room jump on it and build. So when he comes up with his next beat, they're still on topic. Here on the commentary table, they're not on topic anymore. It's moved on, and he's lost. And that, I think, is what really was the worst thing for him. It wasn't that he was doing bad jokes, it was that he was staying on bad jokes when nobody else in the room was. And I think that's what killed him as a commentator. Then they do the Andre the Giant Memorial segment. This is a lot different than what we get nowadays, where it'll open with a memorial screen and they'll do the 10-bell salute with everybody up on the stage. Here there was no stage, nobody was out at ringside. It was just Finkel saying, hey, we lost somebody, please stand for a 10-bell salute. And they did a little very light retrospective. Now at the time there was nothing established. It's not like this was a weak memorial. There just was no precedent to go against. They didn't know what to do. So at the time, this was a fitting memorial. But you go back and you look at it in hindsight, and it's just, oh, that's weak. But that's only because of hindsight. Then you got Yokozuna versus Tony DeVito. Total squash. Literally almost no time at all in the match. They actually spend longer talking to Hacksaw Jim Duggan, promoting his match with Yokozuna, coming up, I think, at a weekend house show, than they do actually inside the match. It's that short. Then you've got Money Inc. coming out for a promo where they are addressing Brutus Beefcake's promo, saying that one of them will take him on. And they also start planting some seeds, because not only is a tag team challenging a singles wrestler, which is weird, but Jimmy Hart comes out and starts protesting this decision. He's the manager of Money Inc., and he's saying that it's an unnecessary risk for them to be taking on singles matches. What if they get injured? Which kind of lays the seeds. We'll watch where this is going through the next couple weeks until we get to what this goes to. Those of you that have been watching for a while know where this goes, even if you weren't watching at the time. Then we've got the final match. This is the narcissist Lex Luger's Raw debut against Jason Knight. Yes, every single match on this episode is a total squash, where except for Tugboat having been a credible wrestler at one point, remember this is before the Shockmaster, none of their opponents are treated as credible. Tugboat, not even in this match, is treated as a credible opponent, and most of them are just preliminary wrestlers, jobbers, that kind of guy, including Jason Knight here, who would go on, much like Vito LaGrasso, Skull Von Krush, would go on to a little bit of notoriety in ECW as just Jason. So here on this match, he's skinny as all hell. He blows up a little bit once he gets to ECW, and even later after ECW goes out of business and he's working in the indies. Now you see him more recently and he's huge. But at the time he was just Jason Knight, and he goes down to two of the most vicious forearm strikes you'll see in wrestling. Even when they weren't plugging his reconstructed forearm, he still used it as a weapon, and it looked good. I mean, Lex Luger, say what you want, his forearm strike looked good. Pins him with a pinky. Beautiful heel work. But that's it. That's the episode. Next week's episode will be preempted for the dog show. So it's 2 weeks before another episode of Raw. We see this happen a lot in the early years. A lot of the episodes get preempted. Nowadays, that doesn't happen. If you only started watching Raw for the past couple weeks, the past couple years rather, you might not even know that. But yeah, back in the day, the struggle was real. Now, we're not waiting 2 weeks. Join us tomorrow for Raw Episode 5. In the meantime, hit like, hit subscribe, hit these videos that I'm going to toss up here. Thank you very much. As always, I am the Tramp. Cheers.